Hello there, thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA09925539. Our top stories this hour. A heavy focus on our frontline workers as 30 of them are infected with coronavirus in the Ashanti region, even as the case count in Obuasi declines. We are live in the mining town as we find out how the frontline workers got infected and what the current situation is. If you are a frontline worker who has been infected, I want to hear from you. Also coming up, contact tracers live in fear as they say they are threatened by persons they are meant to be testing, and many of them refuse to be tested twice. What do we do to change that story? We talk to head of the contact tracers as we pursue some answers and words of comfort for those frontliners. Also, as Ghana's case count continues to shoot up, we are 6,096 now. Members of Parliament undergo mass testing for coronavirus. We're live there as the House also unanimously approves nomination of recently appointed Supreme Court judges. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we're streaming live on YouTube. You can also join us with your thoughts on 0540-109009 with all your WhatsApp messages. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Now, Parliament has been holding a mass testing for members there. Medical Director in Parliament, Dr. Michael Pambo, is confident the mass testing of MPs and staff of the House currently ongoing will help the nation to contain the spread of COVID-19. Samples are being taken from about 700 MPs and staff pursuant to a directive from the Speaker. Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has more in this report.
So, right behind me at the moment, here on the premises of Parliament, samples of about 700 members of Parliament and staff of Parliament are actually being taken, so they'll be tested for COVID-19. We gather this is something that would happen throughout this week. Now, it's a process that lasts for just about 5 minutes. They come in, the samples get taken, and it's a team from the Noguchi Memorial Institute that's actually handling this. And they will then take the samples to their labs in order for the testing to be done. And in about 48 hours or so, the results will be ready, and those results will be communicated directly to the members of Parliament and the staff. I've been speaking to Dr. Michael Pambo, who is the medical director here in Parliament, on the exercise that has been happening here.
It's an individual thing when it comes to results.
How do you envisage all of this would actually help with the processes as far as helping to contain COVID-19 and keeping members of Parliament and staff here in Parliament safe?
I think one of the key things to winning the COVID-19 battle is to test and test a lot more. So we are chasing the disease condition. Okay, so we chase it, we catch it, and we treat. That's all.
Do you get the sense that we have a situation of the members of Parliament and all cooperating with the processes in order to actually...
As you can see, several of them have already come and tested, and a lot more will come through.
Just to give us a sense, what does the numbers look like? You know, about how many people are you expecting will eventually go through the processes as far as the testing is concerned here
in Parliament? We have 275 MPs, and we have probably about another 400 staff. So yes, we're probably looking at everybody coming through to test.
In terms of the necessary guidance and counseling and, you know, the processes to ensure that even if people test positive here in the House, there's no panic and they're adequately treated. How is the medical office here in Parliament helping with any process like that?
You mean somebody testing positive?
Once the results are done and it happens that someone tends to test positive.
There's a national COVID management team, those who do case management, those who do surveillance and all. So yes, we are doing the testing. I don't even know who gets treated and who doesn't get treated at the end of the day. So that is normally between the testing laboratories and the national COVID management team. And I think as a country, we are doing well. So if anybody is picked, the normal protocols will just be triggered and they will go through it and that will be fine.
Many thanks for joining us, Dr. Prince Pambo. He is the medical director right here in Parliament House, giving us details of this process to get all MPs tested for COVID-19.
Abe. Sorry.
Well, for the members of parliament themselves, they're excited that this is being done because they think it will be a very sure way to get them protected from any infection when it comes to COVID-19. Whereas Mubarak, who is the MP for Kumbungu, for example, wants MPs who do not take this particular test sanctioned and prohibited from coming onto the premises of parliament.
Well, I mean, it's a very smooth and easy process. You know, contrary to the perception out there. For me, I'm excited because this is one testament to Parliament's own commitment towards fighting COVID-19. Secondly, as a country, we are battling with issues of stigmatization. Now, when constituents see their representatives undergoing these exercises, it would encourage them to also undergo the testing if need be. We've had reports of people who have tested positive and have had to run away simply because of stigmatization. And we all have a duty to ensure that people are not getting stigmatized. Getting infected with COVID-19 is not a death sentence. That is what message we should send to people. But for me, as much as it is testament to our commitment to fighting COVID-19, don't forget, let me even acknowledge the Speaker for acceding to the minority's request to have every member of Parliament tested. I think it's very progressive. Having said this, Ghana obviously would come at the heels of Botswana, which is the first country that has organized mandatory testing for members of Parliament. And it is important that as the gateway to Africa, we are seen as showing leadership and leading the way. You know, Botswana tested all of its members of Parliament. Beyond the testing of MPs and staff, I want to see the testing of spouses of members of Parliament. You know, I want to see a mandatory testing of journalists who cover Parliament as well. And I believe it would go a long way to helping all of us in this fight.
What should happen if an MP does not take the test or refuses to take the test?
It is mandatory, and the standing orders of Parliament aptly provide sanctions for people who violate directives of the Speaker or people who violate the House directives. So I'm sure that I don't think any member would say in good spirit that he would not want to subject himself to this particular process. I would believe that, you know, everyone is committed to the fight. This is an educational fight, you know, and it is important constituents are seeing their representatives undergoing these processes.
If they don't, should they still have access to the chamber?
If they don't, certainly Parliament would have to take a decision to prohibit them from accessing not just the chamber, but from accessing their offices and accessing the premises of Parliament. Because by not undergoing the mandatory testing, one may be endangering all members of Parliament. Don't forget, in Tanzania, 3 sitting members of Parliament have died in Tanzania of COVID-19 related infection. In Ukraine, in Iran, and elsewhere, members of Parliament have come into contact with persons who have COVID-19. And it is by nature of the work we do. I mean, we are organizing surgeries either in our respective constituencies or in our offices every now and then. So it's important that we remove every element of the possibility of a member of Parliament getting COVID-19.
Can I go? These samples have been taken pursuant to a directive that came from the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Kwe himself, as part of the measures he says will help protect MPs and Ghanaians in general from COVID-19. We wait to hear what the results will be eventually. From Parliament House in Accra, my name is Joseph Opoku-Gakpo.
Well, let's check out what the latest story is from there. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins me once again with an update on that testing ongoing. Hello, Joseph. What the situation is the testing over?
It's still been ongoing. The samples are being taken. From the indication that we're getting, it's a process that will continue for the rest of the week, so that then those who are unable to go through the process today will be able to do that later in the week. For those who are going through the process, the MPs and the staff, they remain confident that even as the processes unfold, they await what the results will be. There have been some criticism that this is something that should actually have been done before the MPs resumed from their break yesterday. But as they always say, better late than never. And earlier in the day, I spotted a number of folks who came in to do the testing, including the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Oseusu, as well as Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Bernard Okuboy, and a number of others. And so the processes are ongoing, and we gather it will continue later into the week.
And Joseph, let's take a look at the other things that have been happening in Parliament. We understand this afternoon that the Supreme Court judges who were nominated have been approved by the House.
Correct. I will get to that in a jiffy. But again, on the floor, earlier in the day, the issues of COVID-19 came up. Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, Frank Anodompre, who is the MP for Nsawama Dojiri, delivered a statement calling for African solutions to the problems having to do with COVID-19. And in that statement, he got other MPs contribute to it, including the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Okujeto Ablakwa. And essentially, the point they've been making is there's been efforts to deal with the COVID-19 situation with the medication that's coming in from Madagascar, and the efforts to mobilize support on the African continent to deal with the problem. They would want to see more of that being done instead of a continuous reliance on the West in order to help deal with the problem. Mr. Ablakwa expressed disappointment that recently there was a conference to raise money in order to help fund various COVID-19 initiatives across the world, and he's indicated that he watched stars like Madonna donate up to $1 million and all, but he looked through the list and saw that there was no donation from any African country, and majority of the donors were from the European Union, and for him that was very much disappointing. He made a strong call on various African nations to ensure that there is increased investment in science and technology per the agreement that African Union governments have made, that up to 1.5% of GDP of the various nations will be invested in GDP. So the MPs have been making that strong call for Africa to take its destiny into its own hands and come up with solutions to deal with COVID-19. Gifty, onto the other issue you raised. The report of the appointment committee was laid on the floor of the House yesterday, recommending that Parliament approves the appointment of Justice Clemens Jackson Honyanuga, as well as Justice Isifu Omoro Tanko Amadu, Mr. Emmanuel Yoni Kolendi and Professor Henrietta J. N. Mensah Bontu as justices of the Supreme Court. That particular report was debated on the floor of Parliament a few hours ago, and all these 4 individuals have been approved pending swearing in by the President, Adodan Akufo-Addo, so they can become justices of the Supreme Court. And just to quote something very interesting, in the report recommending their approval, all 4 of them, the report indicates that the appointment committee, following the hearing at the level of the appointment committee, is duly recommending all 4 of them for the necessary approval, which the House eventually voted on and went ahead to approve them. Particularly for Justice Clemens Honyanuga, it's looking interesting because we saw a situation where at the level of the appointment committee, the day after he was vetted, the committee voted, and there were 17 members of the committee, 7 of them from the minority side, voted against his approval, 10 of them voted for his approval, and the minority's insistence had to do with the fact that he had endorsed President Akufo-Addo for a 2nd term, and for him that meant he was politically biased and he had breached the code of conduct when it comes to justices, and so he shouldn't serve in the highest court of the land. But on the floor, those arguments against his nomination didn't come up. Harun Idrisu made the point that he had apologized to a certain extent, and so they are letting the issues go. In fact, that apology was rendered before the minority MPs voted against his approval at the level of the appointment committee. But it's interesting that the minority MPs are virtually pulling brakes on their objection to his approval. We heard from the Tamale Central MP, Nusa Fuseni, who indicated earlier in the day that he was also going to object to his approval, but looks like the minority MPs have backtracked and supported the approval. I engaged James Klucha Veji, who is the deputy minority leader, and for him, the decision to vote against the approval at the committee level earlier this month was the decision of the minority MPs on the committee. But at the level of the plenary itself, they are actually supporting this particular approval. And so the 4 of them have actually been approved, and the President is expected to swear them in so they can take up their jobs as justices of the Supreme Court.
And on it goes. Joseph, I was going to ask you a few questions, but you've answered all of that for me in that comprehensive details that you've given us about what happened. But we heard earlier on, as far as the COVID testing was concerned, that all professionals, I mean other professionals, will have their go at it, according to Dr. Okoboy. We also heard the doctor in Parliament mention that journalists, I mean press corps members like yourself, will be tested. How is that going to happen, and when?
And so the process is still ongoing. I'm yet to show up there myself to attempt going through the process, then to see what the response will be. But as Dr. Bernard Okoboy, the Deputy Health Minister, indicated, the idea of getting to various places where people work as professionals in order to get the testing done as more of a mass testing approach is something that they are working on very seriously. And he specifically mentioned that one of the things they're looking at is, for example, they could go to bus stations and do a testing for trotro drivers and all others who are gathered there, essentially making the point that they are stepping up the testing as a way to ensure that as many people know what exactly their COVID-19 status is, as a way to help avert further spread of the disease by individuals or people who may not know they have the disease because they may be asymptomatic.
Joseph, thank you for that update. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is our parliamentary affairs correspondent in that bright yellow shirt, and also our recent latest award winner. Joseph joined us from Parliament. Now, I'll take you through our case count as it stands at the moment. Ghana's case count stands at 6,096. It's just shot up, as you can see, 6,096 cases we have so far. I'll take you through the regional breakdown and let you have an idea who has recovered and who has died. So in the Greater Accra region, we're looking at 4,536, majority of the cases. The Ashanti region is following with 886, Central region with 258, and the Western region 111. The Eastern region is following that list with 100 cases so far. Western North has 57. The Volta region has 41. Northern region has recorded 31 cases so far. So the story for OT region is that 26 cases have been recorded. We saw some discrepancy some time back, but that's the figure for you, 26. The Upper East has 26, Upper West has 21, Northeast region has 2, and Bono has 1 case so far. Regarding the number of people who have recovered, good news, 1,773 have recovered. But unfortunately, 31 people have died. Like I said, today we'll focus a lot more on our frontline workers, especially the contact tracers. And I want to find out from you, what are your thoughts about all of these? I mean, are you a frontline worker who is coming under any of these attacks? Do you know anybody like that? I would love to hear from you. I'll take a very quick break. When I return, we'll take a look at that and more. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, more than 25 days since the launch of the COVID Connect service by the University of Ghana Medical Center and the Farm Access Foundation. Over 1,000 people have subscribed onto the system aimed at offering people remote COVID care. Subscribers will, by the use of an internet-enabled device, be able to receive coordinated care without trooping to the hospital. Komla Adum has been interacting with one person infected with the virus as he shares his user experience with the COVID Connect system.
It started with one subscription, and then another, then another. And after 25 days of the launch of a COVID Connect service by the University of Ghana Medical Center and the Farm Access Foundation, subscriptions have crossed 1,000. The service, which is accessible through the download of a Lucy application via an internet-enabled device, offers subscribers a coordinated care path in the management of a coronavirus. Individuals with COVID-like symptoms will avoid visiting the hospital but will get remote diagnosis and subsequently receive care through this particular COVID Connect service. Here is Chief Executive Officer of the University of Ghana Medical Center, Dr. Darius Osei.
Within these 3 weeks, we've managed to get 1,000 active users of these software, which is very encouraging. I would like, on my own behalf and management, thank all the active members of staff who have actually put in a lot to get to this milestone. We definitely have to continue. The target is to hit the 5,000 mark by the end of the year. We thank managers of the program, Farm Access especially, and then the doctors who have been working around the clock every day. We urge all who are to come in contact with COVID-19 and are diagnosed as such to use this facility to manage themselves.
Every hour, and do not hesitate to put in more measurements. We want to support you through this infection, and so keep to all the protocols that we've already discussed.
It's been 25 days since the launch of the COVID Connect service here at the University of Ghana Medical Center in collaboration with Farm Access, and they have hit the 1,000 subscriber milestone, and that's just the reason why we're here, to speak to one of the subscribers of this particular service to understand exactly how it works and to just get the user experience of this particular service. And we're happy Francis joins us. He's been generous enough to join us. Hi, Francis. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. How are you doing too?
I'm okay. How did you hear about the Lucy app, first of all?
Oh, okay. One of my doctor friends by name Dr. Safwa introduced me to the app. That's how I can go to hear about the app.
I want you to walk us through the process. So once the doctor friend told you about this app, then what next?
Oh, okay. So I had to download the app on the Google Play Store and then sign up as a register. So I had to fill in my name, my email address, some few personal information, And then after I was registered, I was asked about some few issues that had to do with coronavirus. So I answered all those questions, and then from time to time, they've been contacting me to find out how I'm doing.
Okay. So when did you receive your first call from the Care Coordination Center here at UGMC?
From the COVID Connect UGMC?
Yes.
I can't really tell the day, but somewhere after 6th of May.
Okay. Had you exhibited the symptoms, you know, before taking the decision to then go ahead to download the app and then fill in all the requirements, and then we're here?
Oh, okay. I think the best I could say with respect to whether I had exhibited any symptom was the loss of smell. Yes, it was when I was going through the questions on the application, that's when I realized that loss of smell is also a symptom of the COVID-19. Yeah.
So at what point did you discover that you had a situation?
Oh, okay. So I actually did a test on the 1st of May, which is a Friday, and then I was given a report on the 6th of May, which is a Wednesday. So I was informed about my status for the COVID-19 on the 6th of May. I think from that time I've been isolating myself in the house.
Tell us about how care is going for you, especially in relation to the service that you're getting through the COVID Connect system.
Oh, okay. So initially, when I started, I was, they have this daily checklist that you have to go through or fill on the application. So I was doing it, and then anytime I do it, I receive a call from one of their doctors, and then checking up on how I'm doing, and then interact with me based upon the findings that I just placed in. Yeah, so it's been wonderful. Sometimes I don't go through the process. I don't feel the form, but I still get a call from them, and then encouraging me to go through the application and stuff.
And I guess you're feeling better.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, absolutely. But this is a very brave decision you've taken to allow us to speak to you this way, especially in the circumstance that we hear people are being stigmatized. You know, community folk are stigmatizing the people in their society, etc. Even if they recover, you do not harbor any fears for coming out this way?
No. I feel this is the virus is no respect of persons. It can attack. It can become infected by it, and then there's no need to stigmatize. I don't really. I mean, it's okay. It's normal. Yes, I don't really have any issue. People may have challenges, but I am fine by that. Yeah, and I know I will sail through this. So.
It's been nice connecting with you again, even though in a very interesting way, but it's been absolutely a pleasure connecting with you again since school.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I wish you all the best. Get well soon.
All right. You're welcome.
Health workers here are excited about the COVID Connect service and progress being made. They are hopeful in the coming days, people will avoid visiting the hospitals, instead will resort to the application to receive care.
Welcome to Frontline, a part of the program that we dedicate to people who are working in the front lines and people who are putting their own lives at risk for all of us. The Ghana Health Service says it is planning to engage the services of security personnel to protect the lives of COVID-19 contact tracers. Some of them have been telling JoyNews their life is sometimes threatened by persons they're supposed to be taking samples from in some communities. Speaking exclusively to JoyNews, head of the contact tracing team at the Nima General Hospital, Naomi Edu, said she sometimes fears for her life due to the responses she receives when she calls persons for testing. She's been speaking to Sarah Mensah.
It has been very hectic and very difficult for people to understand that indeed I'm not sick. We had a situation where we had to involve the military, the police to help us convey people from their homes to the treatment center. People even went ahead to threaten us that when they come back from the treatment center, they are coming to sue us, they are coming to do this to us, so many things to us, but we were just focused on what we are actually doing. People are now no more owning up even when they tested positive. They don't want to own up again. You call the person, your results is in. And then I have to see you to break the news, to tell you how your status after the test. And I'm like, and the person is like, I don't need it anymore. You can take your results. I'm not sick. Don't call this line again. The next time you call this line, I will look for you and then kill you. They threaten you, at least tell you things that will make you very scary.
Of that woman. Well, another issue that the health officials who are handling COVID-19 related cases face is the resistance of some residents in the Ayawaso North constituency to allow themselves to undergo a second test for COVID-19. Municipal Health Director Dr. Sophia Quist revealed that some of those residents who are in self-isolation at home are actually refusing to allow themselves to be tested twice.
Currently, Mamobi or Ayawaso North has quite a number of cases in the municipality, and it's been a successful situation. But then currently our challenges are that when we have the cases and we want to do a retest to ascertain whether they have recovered, is now a big challenge for us. They are refusing us entry. They are not allowing us to take the second and the third test to make sure that they have recovered. When we get to the community, they refuse anything we say because they feel once we've given them the first test, there's no need for the second and the third test.
These were persons who had tested positive and are in the community. Did they go on self-isolation? Did you monitor that?
These are the ones whom we have assigned as home-based care, and therefore we call them daily. We go to their homes to check on them daily. And so when they surpass the 2 weeks, and then we go back to do their first test to ascertain whether they have recovered. Then the second test will now give them the final recovery stage. So these are those who we have assigned as home-based, and we have assessed their situation, their home situation, and realized that they can do the isolation in their homes. Yeah.
So how come you don't find them? What happens? Do they run away?
They don't run away. For some have traveled. Because the lockdown was lifted, some have traveled. For those who are in their homes, when we get there, they lock the door, they don't allow us entry. And then even for those who even allow us entry, once we just disclose to them we are coming for your second test or your third test, they refuse the samples to be taken. They refuse us entry.
This must be a Herculean task. So how are you intending to manage it?
Our next step now is to engage the assemblymen because they are in the community with them, and also do a more education. Now they need to really appreciate that for now the only thing we can do is they need to accept the education. They need to open up for us to educate them. Fortunately, we have those who have recovered from the isolation centers who are now back home. So our next step is to use them as ambassadors to educate the others who are refusing us the treatment or the second test.
So how can we fix this problem to enable the health personnel work smoothly without threats? Joining me via Zoom is the head of institutional care at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Samuel Kaba Akoria. Doc, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
And your listeners.
All right. So let me also to you, those of you who are watching at home, that I want to hear from you if you have any such experience, if you have been a part of the contact tracers or work in the front line or has come into contact with any of these persons and has heard these threats. I want to hear from you. So Dr. Kaba, I just wanted to find out from you first of all, how widespread is this problem that the contact tracers are describing to us today?
All right. So we are very worried with this daily occurrence. Not only because of the safety of our workers, but the safety of the community as well. Confirmed cases staying with their families in the community with their friends, with their loved ones, their brothers and relatives. And what it means is that if any of them are listening to me, is that please, if you really love your friends, your relatives, kindly cooperate. The best love to them is to protect them by cooperating. And the best protection of the community is for all sectors of the community to also cooperate with us. We are sincerely pleading for this assistance. COVID is everybody's business. And the only way we can get out of this and fast is community support. This is not the first time and I know we'll still be having some challenges. A lot of people still don't believe that COVID is real, but you don't need to lose your loved one before you agree that it's real. You don't need a friend's friends to die before you say, oh, COVID is real, or you yourself don't need to be affected before you say COVID is real. We've seen the stories, we've seen people people telling us testimonies and all that. So it is time for us to really take this. We will do our best to use the community structures. We will do our best to use every little thing within our powers and to protect the health workers. But also, it's just not about the health workers alone. It is also about the community, because we don't want the community spread to keep escalating. And the only way to get this done is to call once again and plead with the community structures to actually assist us in getting people to get the right thing done.
I'm curious to find out how often the people who go out to do this work complain to you or complain to the institution about this problem.
Yeah, so we have different levels of approaching this. So we have different areas where this happens. We also have to recognize that some people have been very cooperative, but then we have other people who have not been that much cooperative. I can tell you that from the beginning, some of these things have been happening. And it's not only contact tracers, even our ambulance service personnel who are doing so good, they are working so hard. When they get into a community to evacuate patients, sometimes they don't even allow them. We've even changed some of the strategies not to go there with an ambulance with siren. We've changed some of the strategies, but some communities just don't cooperate. And it's something very worrying. And I think that what we'll do is to engage more with them. And places where we will need support from the security services, we will have to do that. But for now, we believe and plead with the community structures to work.
So are you saying that it's not time yet to involve the security personnel at the moment? Or
they've been, in some cases, they've already been involved. In fact, I have to praise national security. There's been instances that they've helped us to actually get to the patients. So they've already been involved. And we will engage them more. And they are actually giving us the best of support. And it's thanks to them that most of the things we've done, we've been able to get to where we are today.
How will this impact the general fight against COVID-19? I mean, the pace with which people have to work, all these blockades you're getting from the people who don't want to be tested twice, from people who don't want them to come to their homes. How will it impact our fight against coronavirus?
It has a very negative impact if we continue this trend. What we should understand is that government can do its best by providing contact tracers, by providing the means of actually doing the contact tracing. Even each test is quite expensive. The PPEs we use are very expensive. Government is doing its part in that. But one pillar, one important and very important pillar is the community engagement, community empowerment, and community ownership of this, where people living in the community should be able to come out and say, look, I have this person here, his A, B, and C should have this. Because as I said, once the person is in the community and you don't get him out, he's actually spreading it within the community, and he's giving it to his own family, he's giving it to his own friends, and then they will also move to the next level. Just imagine from the community, they go to the market. It just makes our job so difficult. As I said the other day, the best gift you can give to us is compliance, community to support us. And the best gift they can give to their family is also to agree and comply to what government puts in place and support us so that together we can get this fast. without community support, without community involvement, we will really have serious challenges in handling this in the quickest form.
I mean, here at Multimedia, we're doing our very best to support. I mean, on this program, for example, we have this segment that is just dedicated to persons who work at the front lines. How else do you think, for example, the media specifically can help in dealing with this particular problem?
As a matter of fact, every opportunity I get, I try to highlight and congratulate the media for the work being done so far, which has been off politics, off partisanship, off everything. The media has done fantastically well. But here's the point. We need to keep drumming. I usually say that for the regular human being, you have to say something 2, 3, 4 times before they understand it. Some even need to experience before they understand. That's what we don't want to happen. But for the genius, you might say it once and they will take it. So we've been doing it, but we need to keep drumming and keep drumming and keep drumming. And also be showing people some of these, our heroes who have recovered, and they are like ambassadors telling us that it is real. And also people who have actually suffered and have not recovered, for people to understand that it's real. Because of the high grade of asymptomatic we have, people don't take it serious. But there is one thing, if you look at the general mortality, and you even say that, okay, those beyond 61, you get about 14 to 15 of them, but the rest are below 60. And to me, anyone below 60 is still young. Even those 60 to 65 are still young. And there are things that we should consider and know that we can hurt our family without knowing we are hurting them. We can hurt people without knowing we are hurting them by giving them the disease, by saying that we don't believe in it. So the media should keep making efforts, just as they are doing, and together we'll move forward. So I'm very happy with the media, and I must congratulate you and everyone involved in this fight. As I say, COVID-19 is everybody's business, and the only way we can move together is to have this solidarity, put everything aside, have one unity, united front, and then move forward to curb this together.
My final question is whether, because of what you have just said, whether you think it's about time we begin to put faces to the statistics of the number of people who have been killed by coronavirus.
You see, there are a lot of things we can do, but we also have to look at how our society will accept it. Because we have societal, we have our own culture. But yes, it is time we have the faces who come voluntarily to say, look, I want to champion this. But it's also time we let people know that, look, people are actually dying. It's just not the figure we project that 10 deaths, 20 deaths, 30 deaths. These are human beings and they've lost their families. You can interview the family members. They'll tell you that, yes, we've lost this. But as I said, once again, we have our own cultural things, and we need to actually engage the people psychologically. And then if they willingly accept to come out to pronounce and give a certain testimony, it will be the most fantastic we can ever get to support this.
It's something that I've actually had on my mind for some time. Perhaps because when you take the case, and I said that was my final question, I'm not asking any question, I'm just ending our conversation, that people in Obuasi, for example, that my colleague spoke to, will tell you things like, well, we haven't seen anybody who is dead yet. Show us the people who are dead so we can take this seriously. Perhaps it's about time we begin to, not in a way of spiting the families, but getting these families to come out to talk to people about how they've lost their loved ones. So the work, I mean, the toll on people who are at the front line working this out for us will not be threatened like it is at the moment. Do you have any final words?
I think that is a fantastic step we could be taking, and that will be something that, as I said, we engage them with some psychologists, we let them know. Because this fight is in a way that everybody has to come on board, and it's in a way that we actually have to engage everyone, and it counts. When people recount their own story, somebody might have lost a relative who is the caretaker of the house. It has a direct implication on his future. And when he explains, don't let that happen to your next neighbor. Don't let that happen to somebody else. And then we will all together do our best to handle this the best way we can.
Yeah, my producers are just giving me this heads up to this particular, also very important question about the packages that were announced for frontline workers. We've had some of them complain, especially those who bury the dead. When are those packages going to be distributed and how?
All right, so you heard the Minister of Health talk about it. All institutions are working on it, and at the appropriate time, the Minister will come out to give the right pronouncements to that. Let's remember this. We are still in the middle of the outbreak. The person who today might be just in the hospital's name might not be in, but tomorrow might be part of it. So we need to be careful as to how we carve it, and we need to make it in a way that everybody will accept it. You know, we need to build consensus. So as the minister rightly said the last time, the heads of institutions are actually working on every little thing. And once the packages are in, it will surely come out, and the minister will come out to give the right information to everyone.
Is it to say that there aren't, at the moment, institutional arrangements that you are aware of?
Oh, no, there are. Look, you know, there is one thing we need to understand, and it has nothing to do with politics. It's worldwide. Once the president makes an announcement, it is for policy implementers to start checking how best that should be implemented. So right from day one, when he made the announcement, besides, you know, he does that in consultation with the policymakers. They advise him and say, look, let's do it this way. So before they even advise him, structures are put in place so that the best will come out. Now, a very good intention can sometimes be misinterpreted in the society or within the group of people it will be affecting. And that is exactly what we want to avoid, that a good intention will, at the end of the day, become something like, I didn't get it, why did you eliminate me? Why did you? I also worked at this time, I was also at high risk. So we actually working to make sure that everybody comes out of it. As I said, COVID is everybody's business, and everybody should come out of it satisfied in one way or the other. And that is what we are working on.
Dr. Kaba, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and do send our regards to all the contact tracers, those who are doing this good work for all of us. Tell them that we think about them every day, and here on Joy News every single day we say a big thanks to them. Dr. Kaba Akoria there. I'm going to take a break through our front line to go to Germany, because we're also talking about interventions being made there to deal with coronavirus. So we'll take a look at that, but we'll come back to home, home to Ghana and continue with the frontline situation here. Well, in Germany, in a crossover to Germany today, we're focusing on efforts that are being made to raise funds for COVID-19 response. Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Macron are proposing a 500 billion euro recovery fund for the EU. We'll get the details. Also, borders are starting to reopen in parts of Europe. So how exactly are they pulling this off? Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW. Thomas is joining me from Germany. Thomas, let's start with the COVID fund. Who is supposed to contribute to that fund, and how will it be used to respond to the pandemic?
This would be a fund giftee by the European Union that would be then distributed not necessarily to the specific countries of the European Union, but to regions or sectors that have been particularly affected by the crisis. The whole idea of this, and it's important to stress that it's only a proposal so far, is that the European Commission would borrow that money from financial markets and then would distribute it to those regions and those sectors. The money would then be repaid as part of the European Union budget, or at least in some of the few budgets in the future. Something important when we consider this is that this marks a very important departure from German political tradition in the last few years. Germany was against the idea of raising shared debt. In other words, of allowing the European Union to get money on behalf of all the member states, which will then have to be paid also by all member states, but that would essentially go to the most affected countries in the continent. Now, Germany and France have said that they support this proposal, that they would like other countries to also support this proposal, but it is clear already that it's going to be a very bumpy road for Germany and France if they're going to convince other European countries that this proposal is definitely something that they should go with.
And so, has it already started? Is it still a process that's ongoing?
It is only the first step in a long process. So Germany and France made this proposal, which was described, by the way, as a very ambitious proposal. We're talking here of a lot of money that would help the European Union's economic recovery. At the same time, other countries like Austria, for example, or Denmark or Sweden or the Netherlands have said that they do not support this idea because they do not want to have this idea of mutualized debt or shared raising shared money, if you will. And they say that they're going to present their own proposal, and then all proposals in one way or another will be going to the European Commission, and in the next few days and in the next few weeks these issues will be discussed as to how and when the European Union will start to implement those proposals to make sure that the countries can recover from the coronavirus. Let's not forget, and I'm sure this is also the case in Africa as it is in other parts of the world, that the coronavirus is causing a lot of economic problems.
It is indeed, and one of the ways that it's causing economic problems is the fact that borders are shut and people can't go in and out. Businesses are finding it very difficult. So tell us about the borders that are reopening. That's rather a bold statement apart from the Bundesliga resumption as well. Which specific parts of Europe have eased the restrictions on their border movements?
I'm glad you point and you mentioned the Bundesliga, Gifty, because the Bundesliga is essentially a decision that was made here in Germany. So basically each country on its own can decide when to resume its sports. But when you're talking about borders, that's not something that only one country can decide. Obviously, one country can shut its borders to another one. But when you talk about reopening them, and in particular in the context of the coronavirus, then you obviously have to consider the situation in the neighboring countries. And that's why some of the European countries have been discussing it, obviously virtually, how, under which conditions and when borders can be reopened. The goal is obviously for countries that have a similar coronavirus situation, so that are in a similar stage, that they can gradually, step by step, reopen their borders. So for example, Germany decided to reopen its border to Luxembourg, and it decided as well to ease controls on its border to France, a very important one, Switzerland and Austria. And the goal here, Gifty, is to have free movement of people and goods in Europe by mid-June. And you may know, because we've spoken about this in the past, that free movement is an absolutely essential part of the European project, not only for businesses, not only, for example, for the tourism sector, but also for workers, for students, for families who have to cross borders on a regular basis to ensure their livelihoods.
And so, are there modalities of how this is going to happen? I assume that wearing of masks will be mandatory. Will there be mandatory testing? Will there be any sort of quarantine? How do they intend to pull this through?
So all these are details that are still being discussed. The issue of the quarantine is particularly important because something that has been discussed this week is to what extent different countries can eliminate the quarantine when people are coming from other European Union countries. So quarantine would still be enforced if you come from a third country to Europe, but the goal is for quarantine to be cancelled if you're traveling between European Union countries, in particular if the borders will be open as of June. So this has been a very important element in the discussion in recent days. The other details are actually being discussed, and this is why it's important to have this phased reopening of the borders. So in other words, not have a reopening of the borders where you simply set a date, the border is open and that's it, but rather to take step by, for example, easing some of the restrictions, then looking how the situation develops, looking how the border movements are taking place, and then exactly what has to be done to ensure that people moving from one country to the other can actually do that in a safe way that respects all those hygiene and safety measures that we've been discussing for a long time.
Interesting. I'm eager to see how this ease of restriction, will aid movement in these times and how that will impact on the fight against coronavirus. But certainly, Thomas, I'm sure that this is something you give us more information on when we come next to you this week. Thomas, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW, and every week he joins us here with details of what's happening, especially in Europe as well as Germany. Well, we're back home. It was an ecstatic moment for some families and friends and the entire Apeguso township in the Sojaman district when news broke that all 12 residents who tested positive for coronavirus have recovered and going back home. A mini deba was organized to welcome them officially to the town, wish them well, and also educate the public on the need to stay safe and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
And pageantry was overwhelming as family people poured powder on the recovered patients. 5 of the 12 recoveries are Ghanaians, while the 7 are Indians who worked at the Afcon construction company. The Deba was organized for the 5 Ghanaians resident at Apegusu. Even though they have been officially welcomed to the community, some of them expressed worry over the initial stigmatization faced. They cautioned that the virus is real and that people should take it serious and follow all the safety precautions. They have been sharing some experiences with JoyNews.
Nso me ban say na yet say wo mo so mo pay okrum mo go gina information kasa problem na ba nti mo am ya ahemfo ne hema no e ba no mo be kama no atoso na chi no mo frɛ na mo say man ne yare na aba no ye ne sen na ye say wo ko gina information ikeka se wo mpa wo okrum ha say ne say na mo pa kire say ye okrumani
won ha me gina yi won say me she me de me yere ne me nyina ma apem ya mo. A
former director of the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority and the new Patriotic Party parliamentary candidate for the Sojaman constituency, Mr. Paul Asare Ansa, presented some bags of rice, crates of eggs, cooking oil, fowl, and undisclosed amounts of money to the recovered as a token for pacification of their soul. Mr. Paul Asare Ansa said they have initiated many moves to curtail the spread of the COVID-19 in the Sojaman constituency. He called on the constituent to be vigilantes of COVID-19 in the Sojaman constituency.
Who contracted the disease? 355 contact tracing and testing were made. Out of that, 12 tested positive. Today, all of them have recovered. We didn't record any death. We have produced about 40,000 and distributed them. We are producing 60,000 more of nose masks. It is a law now in Ghana, and we expect the police to enforce it for everybody to wear it. We have given nobody excuse. I can say emphatically, with the records available to us, that Sojaman is free from COVID-19. And we are going to ensure with concrete measures, as I've spoken about, with the compulsory wearing of nose masks and other things that we are going to enforce. We are going to make sure that nobody introduces this sickness again into Sojaman as was done.
The Omankrado of Akwemu Adontin traditional area, Nana Dede Akwe II, advised the people of Apegusu against stigmatization.
The test results came. In fact, when you want to travel to the nearby places, it is even difficult to get a vehicle, because once people heard Apegusu has been affected, it's difficult. You stop a car and then no one will stop for you. My advice to the people is that we stop stigmatizing against the affected, since it can even lead to a different issue that will create a different issue altogether. Yeah, so stigmatizing against each other should be avoided.
Maxwell Kudako report for JoyNews.
certainly how we should be receiving them and encouraging others to tolerate them as they had already done before they got that disease. Well, before we go on a break, some of your messages here. In my humble opinion, this one says it is the right direction for all members of parliament to be tested, at least to allow others to follow. They should also watch their sitting arrangements in the chamber. It is very important. Thank you for sending that message, although you don't add your name. This one says, thanks to our frontline workers for their good work. I say, may the good Lord bless them for serving Mother Ghana and love and dedication. Andrew sent that from Western Region. And this one, okay, were you asking for a number? But you can send your messages to this particular number, which is fine. Farouk is texting from Tamale North, says it is frightening, the rise of COVID-19 cases in Ghana now that we've gone to 6,096. What is really going wrong? Let's stay at home. Let's wear our masks. Let's protect ourselves. Wash your hands. Hopefully we'll be fine. Good afternoon, please. We're facing problems in writing. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean. I still have a lot of messages. I need to go on a very quick break. You asked this question for Dr. Kaba. You said, can you ask them to break down the recoveries and death according to regions as it's been done for the cases? Lawrence from Nkonya will find out if the authorities can do that for us. Lawrence, thank you for sending in your message. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, I'll go back to Frontline. Like I said, today we're very heavy on our frontline workers. Do stay with us. You're welcome back. Now, 30 frontline health workers have contracted coronavirus in the Ashanti region. This was announced by the Ashanti Regional Health Director this morning at a news briefing.
We have a total of 30 health workers having COVID-19 in the region. When we say health workers, we mean health workers, frontline health workers. Some of them are doctors, nurses, paramedics, and then even health assistants, mortuarymen. They are all part of it. Yes. So that is the situation. That is the situation we find ourselves. But the good thing is that all of them are doing very well. Yes. Some of them have recovered. They've returned to their work. But that is the universal way of getting the infection. Usually health workers and those who are close to the infection, that will always get it. So it's not a big news, but that's the situation in Ashanti region.
He says that's the situation in the Ashanti region. Let's try and get some more details on that. Ohime Interior was at that briefing. He joins me via Zoom. Hello, Ohime. There are coronavirus centers. So if you take the University of Ghana Medical Center, you know it's a center. How do we know where these health personnel are?
Unfortunately, the Regional Health Director, Dr. Emmanuel Tinkwen, wouldn't want to go public with the identity or where the facilities where these health workers who have contracted COVID-19 work. But what he did say is that some of them have recovered. And for him, it is not big news because follow the COVID-19 history, he says all over the world, that has been the trend. Health workers who are always at the front line, they are the ones who always get tested positive for the virus, so it's not a big deal. But for us as journalists, we think that this is a big deal because if health workers who are supposed to manage the condition and also manage the condition of other members of the public contract the virus, then we are looking at the impact that this would also have on healthcare delivery in the region.
Exactly the point. But Ohime, I know he doesn't give you a lot of information, but let's try this. Do we know whether the absence of PPEs, which is a big issue, which is something that health personnel have complained about over and over again, do we know if it has anything to do with how they got infected?
I have been looking around for some information, some details on these health workers who have tested positive for COVID-19 in the Ashanti region. And the information I take is that some of them have no idea where they contracted the virus. though some of them are, yes, majority of them are frontline workers. They can't pinpoint to one reason or one particular point where they contracted the virus. It's interesting to know that some of these health workers, at the time that they tested positive for the virus, they were not actually on duty. And interestingly, it's only a few of them, like, who have tested positive, but their families, some of them have their families who are not also tested positive. So it makes it a bit complex analyzing this situation. But yes, we understand some of the, for instance, the mortuary attendants also tested positive for the condition. And for them, they are not even too sure whether they contracted the virus while working at the facilities that they work with. Yes, but yes, it comes to mind. I have an idea where some of these health workers who have tested positive for COVID-19 work.
Interesting, Ohiming. And at the press conference, what else did he say, the Director of Health?
Yes, the Regional Health Director was happy for the very first time. If you look at the graph for COVID-19 management in Ashanti region did not record a new case for the very first time for several weeks as of yesterday. So I would say health authorities have been passing their back for these particular process that they have chalked. And they say that if you look at the COVID-19 transmission in general in Ashanti region, you could say that yes, the numbers are going down, and especially in Obuasi, which has become more or less the new epicenter of the virus in Ashanti region. At least 587 cases have been recorded in Obuasi. And he says, yes, even in Obuasi, the numbers are coming down compared to what they recorded somewhere in April. He says in April, between April 19th and April 27th, that is where majority of the cases were recorded in Obuasi. But unfortunately, thing is that because at that time, the laboratories had a backlog of cases and they were not releasing their results. By the time they released them, it looked as if Obuasi was recording new cases. But even then, they have dealt with the cases with the improved and intensive surveillance and then contact tracing and other protocols that they have introduced to bring the Obuasi situation under control. So yes, health authorities, especially regional health director, says they are happy that the situation is improving and has improved in Ashanti region. It's an indication that they have been doing the right thing as far as management of COVID-19 is concerned. And he says, yes, they are going to do the same thing and improve on this so that Ashanti region will continue to record a positive record as far as COVID management is concerned.
Very much for that update there. Ohimin Teria is of our health desk, bringing us up to speed on the situation in the Ashanti region. We're learning that the cases have declined in Obuasi. We're learning that unfortunately 30 health workers, frontline health workers, have contracted coronavirus there. Certainly, like Ohimin is saying, it will have an impact on healthcare delivery in the region. In the meantime, health authorities in the region are patting themselves on the back for decline in the COVID-19 infections. Like I said, in Obuasi, Regional Health Director Emmanuel Tinkran again tells the media the briefing reinforced protocols and early detection of cases and subsequent isolation have contributed to that positive development.
The good news is that the new cases of infection in Obuasi has reduced. We will project it for you to see that it was only during the period of 19th April to 27th April that we had the upsurge of the cases. And since then, the number of cases have reduced in Obuasi. So all the interventions that needed to be done is to reinforce what we are already doing. Adhering to the protocols and guidelines as far as personal hygiene is concerned, the use of sanitizers, and more importantly, wearing of the face mask and then the social distancing. That is the key. And once the people of Obuasi and then other areas adhere to the protocols very well, I don't think we'll have a lot of cases anymore. All those who were confirmed positive, Those who were sick or have mild infections were admitted to our our treatment center. And then those with no symptoms at all are being isolated in 4 of our isolation centers. The 2 of the isolation centers are in Obuasi, and we have 2 here in Kumasi. And all of them are doing very well. The good thing is that the rate of infection is going down. The number of new cases that we are having are not as many as that we recorded in April, comparing that of May. So that means that whatsoever we are doing it right. And that we should continue to do it and then adhere to the protocols and then the guidelines. And I believe that, God willing, we will overcome.
We surely will overcome. We have to overcome. So yesterday, we're still on front line. Yesterday was World Family Doctor Day, and it takes place every 19th of May. And this year, the theme is Family Doctors on the Front Line. First in, last out. In Ghana, the country's specific theme is Role of Frontliners, Family Physicians in the Management of COVID-19 Pandemic at the primary care level. They've lined up a lot of activities to mark this day, including continuous professional development sessions for doctors on 4 topics, all related to COVID-19. So let's have a conversation with them now. Dr. Fred Bezra is a specialist family physician at the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital and the national organizer of the Society of Family Physicians of Ghana. He joins me via Zoom. Dr. Bezra, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your lovely listeners.
So we see you have some very interesting topics lined up. Let's take a look, take us through the topics and how, as frontline workers for you, you're using this opportunity to help fight coronavirus.
Okay, thank you very much. SOPOG, as you are aware, is the Society of Family Physicians of Ghana. And we are the main frontline workers for most of the conditions that we treat at the hospital. So 19th May every year is earmarked by the World Organization of Family Physicians to celebrate the Family Doctor Day. So this year, we decided to take time off to educate health workers and also the general public on some very key issues as far as COVID-19 is concerned. So our first topic for yesterday's webinar was the unique Ghanaian experience. You know, COVID is a worldwide pandemic, and we want to explore what has been happening specifically in Ghana. And then we also looked at enhanced contact tracing and how that has helped in Ghana's fight against COVID-19. Then we also looked at the testing challenges we have. We already know that worldwide, one of the main or one of the key to management of COVID cases is testing. It is believed that the more you test, the more likely you are going to fight the disease properly. So we looked at enhanced contact tracing and also challenges in testing in Ghana. Then finally, we looked at the positive COVID patients and how the family physician can help in such cases. Thank you very much.
I see. So let's wrap up with a look at the outcome. So in the webinar, you are essentially having an interactive session. What was some of the outcome? Did you get your colleagues to share their experiences in these very hard times as frontline workers with you? And would you be able to summarize that for us?
Oh, definitely. It was a very fruitful discussion we had yesterday. And most of the presenters are very experienced people who are working directly in the front lines in the fight against COVID. For the unique situation in Ghana, we realize that we are not different from, popular belief around has it that the virus is behaving differently in Ghana and all. But we realize that it is same as we have had elsewhere in the world. The people who we have lost in Ghana have similar comorbidity distributions as we have had elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
So we compare very well with the statistics worldwide. Then one of our speakers, also a family physician, of course, who has had a huge experience with Ebola management in Liberia, talked about the enhanced contact tracing. This is a very unique experience from the management of the Ebola crisis in Liberia. And that has been used successfully in Liberia, and Ghana currently used that successfully to put the COVID infection spread under control. Okay. So enhanced contact tracing is very important, and then it was a very, very, very important prevention at that time.
Okay.
We also realized that family physicians, we have to engage family physicians more and more in the management of our COVID cases, because beyond the discharge, when you discharge a COVID patient, you have to reintegrate into the family and into the society. And then you have to help these patients to fight the stigma and all that's assisted with being a post-COVID patient. So we realized that we shouldn't end at the discharge, but we should go beyond the discharge and properly reintegrate these people into the society.
So how can we do this specific one? I mean, I don't know how different the work of a family physician is from your usual general practitioner. I don't know if you'll be able to highlight that for me briefly, but how will it work as far as the role of, go ahead, please.
So if you look at COVID, I'll just use COVID as an example. The fact that we have a COVID pandemic does not mean that people are not suffering from other diseases.
True.
So a family physician is specifically trained. It's a specialist. It's a specialist training, and they have the skill to conduct comprehensive, coordinated, and continuous treatment for individuals irrespective of the age, sex, or race. So it means that before COVID, you have a family physician taking care of you. Now, in the consulting room, family physicians take care of undifferentiated cases. They don't know, they don't differentiate, they don't differentiate between who to take care of or who not to take care of. So we make the diagnosis. We make the diagnosis of COVID and then transfer to the treatment centers where we still have family physicians who are subspecialized in infectious disease, helping to take care of the COVID patients. And then beyond the treatment centers, when you discharge the patient from the hospital, the patient reverts to the family physician. So in this way, the family physician has provided comprehensive care, has coordinated with those at the treatment centers and other specialists like the intensivists and the intensive care unit specialists, and also has continued to take care of the patient after the recovery.
Okay.
That is the role of the family physician, providing comprehensive, continuous, and coordinated care.
Very well. I'll leave you, but before I go, I just want to find out from you if you can share your personal experience with us as a physician, as a family physician, how things have changed for you since coronavirus in your personal practice, in your social relations, your relations with your family, etc. How has it changed?
Well, it's definitely not been the normal. It's a new normal we are all in. So personally, you get up in the morning, come to the hospital, you have to make arrangements to have some distance from your immediate family. So when you get home, you don't just get to interact with your kids as you used to. And because we see undifferentiated cases, we don't know who is in front of you. We don't know if this is a positive case or not. So the fear of getting infected is highest amongst family physicians. And it's the same. I've had to go through it the same way. Unfortunately, the problem is most of the PPEs or the personal protective equipment are distributed to the treatment centers and the COVID-specific COVID case management teams. The problem is, for those centers, you are taking care of positive patients. But for us in the front line, you don't know who is in front of you. You are now going to make the diagnosis. So the risk is higher amongst family physicians. We are the same people who are doing the triaging. So it's the same with me. Every day, I'd have to go in and then face similar risks. Thank you very much.
Thank you will probably not be enough. I have lined up a couple of people who will be saying thank you right after this interview, and I really hope that you'll be able to hear us. That if you're not at the moment glued to a set that will show you all that happens. Doc Bedzrah, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and say thank you to your colleagues who are also holding the fort for us. So after hearing all the problems, and some of you have sent me messages about thanking our frontline workers and saying how mind-boggling it is for you that people are threatening these contact tracers who are putting their lives on the line, opening themselves up to risk to find out who has coronavirus. And to these doctors like Dr. Bedzrah who don't know what they're dealing with at any given time, but they have to attend to health people. What do we say to these people? Well, we've been talking to some of our colleagues at Joy Prime, and here is their thank yous to all of you.
My name is Jay Foley, and I just want to say share a very simple message to all the frontline health workers. It's your season, it's your time. Waking up every morning tirelessly, going out into the battlefield where you're facing persons, who have been testing positive for the coronavirus, a virus without any cure. I can imagine how you feel like, but hey, we know it's your responsibility, we know it's your job, and even through that, you're still fighting hard to do this for us and take care of us. And we want to say we love you, care for you so much as well, as much as you care for us, and we'll forever remember you in our heart and mind and our soul for this wonderful job that you're doing for us. Thank you very much.
My name is Emefa Akosia Adeti, and in this period, if there was a better way I could say thank you to our frontliners, I would do anything, I would go any length to say that thank you to them. All that you're doing, we really, really appreciate it. We so much depend on you, and do not get tired, do not give up on us. Just keep doing it. We're so grateful. Thank you.
My name is Ibrahim Ben Bako. I'm with Joy Prime, host of the Red Carpet Show and Showbiz Now. To all the frontliners who are doing an amazing work, making sure that people are being traced wherever they are, supposed people who might have COVID-19 are not stigmatized. They put in their lives, leaving their family and making sure that these people are well taken care of. We say ayiko to all of you for a yeoman's job and for a wonderful job you're doing. We appreciate you, and we will forever support you with our prayers.
And still, so many of you are sending in messages, so many messages. I'll tell you what happened here last night. And if you follow the discussion, it was massive. The PM Express, the sports version of the PM Express, I should say, hosted by Gary Al Smith. Yesterday, he had our own Kwabena Yeboah here from Ghana. He had South African broadcaster Robert Morawa. He had iconic commentators like John Champion and Peter Drury. And all of them talked about sports. But at the end of the day, we asked them to take some time to thank you, our frontline workers, too.
Before that, we're dealing with this invisible enemy that we have. And when you have something like that, especially in a country that is so laden with HIV and AIDS infections, where people see visibly somebody who is sick. Now, the thing about COVID-19 and coronavirus is that you don't see it up until it really attacks the person who has the virus as well. So to be able to be in a hospital, to be in a clinic, to be in any frontline environment takes a great deal of dedication. To put on that mask, to continuously put on the gloves, change the outfits that you're wearing, and make sure that you yourself are not infected or affected by it takes a great deal. And a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses and frontline workers, excuse me, have passed away. We've lost them in this battle. And it can make anybody scared, especially when you know that it's part of your job. But you know what happens every single day? They go to work. So I salute every frontline worker. I salute everybody that has taken their time and their job to go and heal and make better other people's lives. And we say, long may that continue. God bless you. Keep strong and keep your family strong as well.
Good. John Champion, brief, please, if you can, for frontline workers around the world.
I could be as brief as 2 words, Gary, which is just the biggest ever thank you.
Okay, so a big thank you to all of the frontline workers. And I like the way he ended it. He says he can't go beyond. I mean, how many words can you use to describe this? Thank you. A big thank you to all of you. And that's it for Frontline. To the rest of our stories before we go, 400 structures, including an orphanage, were demolished to make way for the construction of a fishing harbor. Residents say they weren't given enough notice. Owner of the destroyed orphanage housing about 25 children, Joyce Naboko, has been protesting the demolition.
I'm the co-founder of JoyNews Street Rights Organization. We started this project to support children, needy street children. In Jamestown. For me, if the government wants my land, they are supposed to tell me. I didn't just come to build anything here. This land was given to us by the chief, the late Nikojo Abebio. This land is plotted and lands. So if you go to lands right now, there's a name on it, which is JoyNews Street Rights Organization. No notice, nothing. You came yesterday and you told us to move. I'm not crying because I don't have a place to stay. I'm crying because I feel for the kids that are staying here. No, they never came to say, oh, we'll relocate this organization. Or, okay, we are putting you here. All they said, the exact word from the Metro Chief is, the Chinese want to use your place for residents. So you have to sacrifice and give it to them for 3 years. We will give it back to you. The question I asked was, so if we have to sacrifice, what is the government doing about it? Will the government relocate us or put us in a place for the 3 years period? And he said, we'll see what we can do. Initially, your organization or your structure is not part of the demolish exercise. But because the Chinese came forward and said they want your place, you have to sacrifice. And we are sorry because we all know that your organization is not part of the demolition. This is the exact word from the Metro Chief. You can verify it from him. Yesterday they came and they sent us to a school behind us. And they said because of the coronavirus going on, they don't have a place to move us now. So we will move in there for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, they might find a place to take us. The people in the school doesn't want to accept us. They said they know. When we move in, government will not bring us back. So they have to find a place. My problem is, we have a very big structure. We have a new building, which is not even being used as a skill training facility. So we asked them, then we want to move to that part, demolish the part, and then after your program, we can move back. They said that Chinese don't want anybody around the beach area. This is what he said, but they are demolishing JoyNews and leaving other structures. Is this a real law, or is somebody behind it?
Well, the person in charge of the project, Sub-Metro Chairman said Raymond Tete, is denying the people weren't informed. He says he indicates that there will be some packages for affected residents. He said the $60 million project will have a landing site, a storage facility and recreational area.
We are here to clear the site for the contractor who is coming to build the Jamestown fishing harbor, for them to start work. Yes, as far as we are concerned, we have cleared all those residing here. But we know that there are others who do other businesses here. And in April, I think 14th of April, we notified all of them that the contractor is coming on site. So we want everybody to leave for them to come and start. But there is that perception that oh, don't mind them, they can't do it. So they have not left. But since we came to announce that we are coming to clear this place, I think some have started moving their things. We are going to compensate those. There are some people we have not informed them. So those people will give a compensation package, especially those around this area, because we did not think that the project would get to that extent. So yesterday I came to have a meeting with them, and I assured them that we are making arrangements for compensation package for them. But there are others, we have told them to leave long time, and still they are being adamant, they don't want to leave. So as far as we are concerned, there are other places we have cleared already, and they have come back. The truth is that we are going to compensate about 400 structures within this place. Those that we have not informed them officially, especially those here, we have to prepare a package for them. And there are others at the other end. We also prepare a package for them. Then we have businesses going on here. Those businesses to prepare a compensation package for them.
Minority Leader in Parliament, Haruna Idrisu, is describing as incompetent the Electoral Commission and its chairperson, Jean Mensa, for several errors in the constitutional instrument that will allow the Commission to compile a new voters register. Ms. Idrisu has been embroiled in a war of words with the EC over the compilation of a new voters register. An exclusive interview yet to be aired on PM Express later tonight at 9 p.m. here on the JoyNews channel. Ms. Idrisu makes several controversial revelations and attacks both government and the EC over a host of issues. Here are excerpts.
In this particular regulation before Parliament, no reference is made to it. So she has a credibility problem. If you told the people of Ghana that this was what you were going to do, I don't see it reflected in the instrument. Now, too, she must admit it, on the floor of Parliament, the instrument have had to be withdrawn 2 times. Defective, legally incompetent, because when it came first and it was rushed late, even when the Attorney General letter said pre-laying, it was late. So there was no consultation. The attachment of an annexure was missing. That's incompetence. And today,
accusing Jean Mensa of incompetence.
The Electoral Commission as an institution, that CI is their CI. So that institution responsible, I have problems with them of their lack of preparedness. In any case, Evans, we in the NDC have made our position known. We will not and we do not support the compilation of a new voter register.
Catch the full interview on PM Express tonight at 9 p.m. this evening right here on this platform. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you who sent in your messages thanking frontline workers. I couldn't take most of them, but thank you so much for sending them in. We've said thanks to them on your behalf. There is more news at myjoyonline.com if you do log on. My name is Gifty Ando Apia.